coming up on FYI. With another hot summer ahead, should we be worried about water shortages?
I'm going behind the scenes to see how they scored the music for the new film, Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. Hello and welcome to FYI, the weekly news show where we bring you all the latest info on all the big stories.
And one thing everyone seems to be talking about at the moment is Russia. Recently, Russia's President Putin and his military generals were threatened by a rebellion led by a man named Yevgeny Prigozhin.
Yeah, I've been reading up on this, and basically what I found out is that Prigozhin is a former hot dog seller who became close friends with President Putin and now runs his own private army called the Wagner Group. Now, his organisation was being paid to fight for the Russians in Ukraine, but he became very critical about the way the war was being fought.
He said that the Russian generals were incompetent and even accused them of launching missiles on his fighters. This is when he decided to pull his men out of Ukraine.
Well, this is where it all gets a little bit confusing, so we've called in an expert to help us make sense of it all. Dr. Precious Chatterjee Doody is a lecturer in politics and international studies, and she joins us now. Hi, Dr. Precious.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
So, what happened when Prigozhin pulled his troops out of Ukraine?
He managed to take over a couple of really important Russian cities, Russian sites, and I think the Kremlin was really worried because this looked like it was going to be a very, very significant rebellion.
So why did this attempted mutiny get called off, and what happens to Prigozhin now?
Well, that's an interesting one because it's a really good example of how in politics, and especially in war, everyone tries to make themselves look the best that they can. So the official line is that everybody thought about it and calmed down a bit. So we've got the president of Belarus, Lukashenko, saying, really, it's all down to him. You know, he negotiated a truce between the parties. He calmed Putin down and he made Prigozhin rethink. Putin's tried to make himself out that, you know, he took the wise course because he's a great statesman. And Prigozhin has basically said that it was never a rebellion all along. He just wanted to hold the military accountable for their bad practices in Ukraine. So everyone's got different stories, but ultimately what we know for sure is that Prigozhin's essentially been sent to exile in Belarus and he's not welcome in Russia anymore.
What do you think this means for the war in Ukraine?
Well, there's a few things that I think it's going to result in for the war in Ukraine. Firstly, back in Russia, the Kremlin's going to be really distracted and really worried about who's upset, what kind of power play is going to be happening behind the lines. At the same time, you've got the Ukrainian side whose morale is going to go right up just as the Russian side is tanking even lower. And the Russian military's had really low morale throughout this, to be honest. So psychologically, it plays a really important role.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Check this out and let us know if you think it's fact or just fake news. Apparently, the Wimbledon tennis tournament is introducing artificial intelligence generated commentary this year. Can that be true? We'll find out later.
So how have you guys been getting on with the hot weather recently? I have to say I'm not a massive fan myself, especially when it gets super hot at night.
Yep, the hot weather has led to water shortages in some parts of England, including the southeast and the southwest. And people are being banned from using hose pipes and sprinklers in their gardens.
And check this out, a river in the Lake District is completely dried up. So should we be worried about our water running out? Well, if you don't get it, then don't worry. Scarlett's been investigating.
Water. It's always there, whether we're brushing our teeth, going for a swim, or just simply having a drink. Every day, we all use it and need it. But have you ever stopped to think? Could all this water ever run out? Well, I've been looking into this. We live in a part of the world where it often rains, a lot. There are deep lakes, flowing rivers, and we're surrounded by the sea. Surely there's plenty of the wet stuff to go around, right? Well, if we look at all the water on Earth, a whopping 97% is salt water in our oceans. Another 2% is locked away as ice at the North and South Pole or in glaciers. So that leaves us just a tiny 1% that's drinkable. Suddenly, it doesn't sound like quite so much. And when it comes to preserving our water, I found out there are two things causing really big issues. The first is climate change. With recent record-breaking temperatures all around the world, water levels often become low, and the risk of drought can quickly follow. And then there's our planet's population. Every year, the number of humans gets bigger and bigger, so we need more and more fresh water. Some experts say that even countries with high rainfall like the UK could run out of water within our lifetimes. So what can we do about it? Well, I need some help here, so let's talk to Richard Thompson from the Environment Agency, whose job is to make sure we'll have enough water in the future. Hi, Richard. Well, we live in a country that's well known for wet weather, yet there's talk of us running out of water. Is this even possible?
Well, that's a good question, Scarlett, and what will happen in the future if we don't take action is that we will run out, but there is action that we can take, both in terms of developing some new supplies of water and also reducing the amount of water that we use in our home.
Have some parts of the country been affected more than others?
Yeah, so there are parts of our country which are drier than others. The southeast only gets about 400 to 500 millimetres of rainfall every year. That's a bit like Western Australia or parts of North Africa. Other parts of the country are wetter. But actually, what we might see in the future is that all parts of our country might start to face water shortages at some point if we don't take action now. And we need to make sure that we all have a role to play in using water wisely in our homes.
In drier countries, where water can already be difficult to access, the impact has been even greater. In some African countries, thousands of people have had to move home because their water supplies have dried up. And it's reckoned this number will rise to hundreds of millions over the next decade. So is anything being done about all of this? Well, across the world, countries are building more dams, like this one in Turkey. These create more consistent water supplies by collecting water from rivers and storing it for when it's needed. And there's also a way of making drinking water from seawater. Desalination plants remove the salt from seawater to turn it into drinking water, but they're very expensive to build and to run. So, Richard, how are we tackling the water shortage in the UK?
Well, there's a few things, Scarlett, that can be done. First of all, we can move water from wet parts of the country, such as Wales or Northern England, and move it down to where that water is needed, using big transfer schemes or connecting rivers and canals.
Can kids do anything to make sure we have enough water?
Yeah, we can do loads in the home, and it's really important that we start to see wasting water as something which is just socially unacceptable. You can turn the tap off when you brush your teeth. If we all do that, it saves about 500,000 litres of water a day. And also, if you want to, around your home, you can become a leak detective. You can go around and try and spot any leaky taps and let your parents know or any adults know so they can be fixed. So there's great ways around the home that you can help save water and help us make sure there's enough water for the future.
Thanks, Richard. That's great advice.
Thank you. You're welcome, Scarlett.
So what else can we all do to save water? Well, here's a couple more ideas I've thought of that might not be quite so obvious. Try collecting rainwater for any plants you've got around the house or in your garden. They prefer it to tap water anyway. And wear clothes more than once before washing them. It's easy to take water for granted, but it's important to remember it's precious and we can all look after it.
So, the summer holidays are nearly here, and I'm sure we're all starting to think of the fun things we can do with our families, right?
Well, here's some good news if you live in London, because after being shut for 3 years, the V&A Museum of Childhood is officially reopening in a brilliant brand new form. It's now called the Young V&A, and Jariah has been to take a look.
The Victoria and Albert Museum, or V&A, was first opened way back in 1852. Soon after it opened, they decided to create another V&A museum, especially for kids. That was over 150 years ago, but overdue for an update if you ask me. And what an update it's had. I mean, look at it, it's amazing, right? The incredible thing is that this new museum has been rebuilt using ideas from people like you and me. And I've come today to see some of those young designers who played a part. So what part of the design did you guys help with? Can you show me?
So I made this one, little kids, they could just move it around and just spin it.
It's great for babies and kids. I felt very proud because it was a really nice design. I liked it a lot.
You can get your lens and just look through.
That's so cool. How did you feel when you first saw your design?
We felt honoured that our work that we made is here.
Oh, I just died. This is really, really cool. I mean, it's like the version of the museum inside Minecraft. So what's special about the Young V&A?
This is, we think, the first museum that's been designed with and for children, and it's here to celebrate creativity in all its forms. I've just found that working with children and young people, we get a new way of looking at things, we get loads of new ideas.
Sometimes when you think of museums, you might think of them as being stuffy and boring. But this one is the complete opposite of that. It's absolutely amazing and I just love it. Look, a stage to put on your own shows.
So earlier on, we told you that the Wimbledon tennis tournament is introducing commentary on the games generated by artificial intelligence. But is that a fact or just fake news? Well, it's a fact. The tournament has teamed up with technology company IBM to offer AI-generated commentary. You cannot be serious. So Maya, have you got like a favourite film soundtrack?
I've got a couple, but it's definitely got to be Frozen.
Good choice. Now, I've got a new contender, actually, as I went to see how one of them are actually made in one of the most famous music studios ever. Check this out. What am I doing here? Well, some of you might know, but the chances are your parents will definitely know. That's right, I'm here at Abbey Road. Abbey Road Studios is one of the most famous recording studios in the world. It's home to some of the most amazing music recordings ever made, from the Beatles all the way to Adele. I mean, I can just feel the history in this place. Imagine how many famous people have been in this room. It must be so crazy. And today, I'm going behind the scenes to see how they scored the music for the new film, Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. Ruby Gillman is a shy high school student who discovers she's a descendant of the warrior Kraken queens.
You are not a human who turns into a Kraken. You're a Kraken hiding as a human.
And now, Ruby must use her newfound powers to protect those she loves the most. Hello, Stephanie. How are you doing?
Hi. Who let you in here?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know why they did.
Lax security at
Exactly.
Abbey Road.
I'd have a word with them if I were you.
Writing music for film, TV, or video games, we often call that scoring, meaning we're looking at each scene and we're figuring out how we shape the music in the moments to kind of bring the story to life.
So what's the hardest part about recording with a live orchestra?
I was writing this score for quite a few months, probably 8 months or so. It can be very isolating. You're sort of writing it by yourself a lot of the time. And as a composer, you can sometimes sort of lose that feeling of what made me love music. But then when you get up here in front of all the musicians, it's like you're reminded of why I started doing this. I wanted to explore dimensions of dream pop and like synth pop and all of this other stuff to sort of exemplify what it's like to be underwater. I will try to come up with a theme, a tune, for either a character or for the film itself.
What's exciting is that Stephanie completely tapped into Ruby Gillman as a character as she goes from being this kind of ordinary teenager to being this like larger-than-life epic hero.
I feel like a freak. Ow! I just want to be Ruby Gillman, normal teenager. Ugh, boo. Where's the fun in that?
The emotion is the most important for us as storytellers, to help the audience track through the journey that our heroes are going through.
Music kind of helps you really feel those characters.
For generations, Krakens have protected the seas, keeping us safe from the most power-hungry and dangerous creature of all.
The mermaid?
Yes, the mermaid! Oh.
It's been great speaking to everyone. They've all been lovely, and it's been ace seeing what goes on behind the scenes. You can really see how music is the soul of films. See you later, Abbey Road. Well, that's nearly it for this week, but don't forget you can catch up on all our episodes of FYI on our webpage at first.news/FYI.
But before you go, we're going to leave you some pictures of the many Pride events that have been taking place over the past couple of weeks. Now, Pride Month is a celebration of LGBTQ+ people celebrating their right to be whoever they want to be.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.